Spirits has new t-shirts, yay, I love them so much. Okay, let's talk about vulnerability and self-care. Give Me That Chocolate asks a great question about loving, helping people, but needing to remember to put themselves first sometimes. It's hard, and it's something I struggle with too. I definitely struggle with feeling responsible for other people and feeling responsible for outcomes that I cannot control. I feel guilty about stuff that I didn't do a lot. I feel, worried that someone's upset with me, or judgmental about myself because an outcome that I couldn't help happened. And it's something I'm working on in therapy, frankly. It's not a thing that you can think your way out of. And it has been really helpful, even just to learn that phrase. I have a tendency to feel responsible for things that I'm not responsible for. Outside of therapy, though, I also find a lot of help in Brene Brown's books. A boss that I really hated gave me the book Daring Greatly back in my early professional days, and I didn't read it for several years, but then read one of Brene Brown's other books about shame and how powerful that feeling is. And it's really, really good. Even though she's shelved in the self-help section, they're really just books about psychology and about understanding yourself and other people better. And they are really, really helpful. And in one book, she talks about this phrase, the story I'm making up in my head. And it's a way to say to somebody, I am really worried right now that you're judging me for having done this. Or I am worried that you're gonna assume that I'm a, bad professional because I moved to this meeting twice. Things that once you start to articulate them really help point out how absurd, the anxious thought patterns are. You can't always say that. It's not always appropriate to say to a boss or a client or even a casual acquaintance, hey, the story I'm making up in my head is that, you think this or that. And it can sometimes be tough for that person to hear, even if you do share it, because it's not about them and rational conclusions you're drawing based on their behavior. It's about your own anxiety. That is what fuels the story in your head, not some secret inner, conviction that your partner is actually really judgmental. They're not. It's just about what you fear. That being said, even just having that heuristic and being able to think to myself, okay, well, am I actually thinking this, or am I making up a story in my head? Just helps me to kind of point out the differences between what I can and can't control and what I'm actually thinking and what I'm just scared of. So what does this have to do with solving other people's problems? Well, most of the time that I feel badly about that, or I feel responsible for them, it's because I'm making up some story in my head that I am responsible for doing that, or that people can't get on without me, which is egotistical and not even true. So it can be really helpful to reality check and to say, I know that I am really worried and upset for my friend whose podcast metadata isn't how I would do mine, but it's not my responsibility. Their show is gonna be fine. This is not a bad reflection on me because I'm not making the show, my friend is. And it can just be helpful to kind of walk myself through, I know that we are panicked when we look at this, my panicked brain and me, we're panicked when we see someone make a mistake that we would be embarrassed to have made, but it's not my responsibility to fix it. This is, though, another driving force behind why I find it important to show my work and to publish stuff, because if I at least make those resources available, then I have to spend less time answering people's questions, because if they ask me a question about podcasting, I can say, oh, here's a link. Go to multitude.productions/resources, and you can find all the things that I published on this particular problem. But I also know that I'm doing all I can to help folks, and what they do with those resources is ultimately up to them. And it's not a thing that I'm perfect at. It is a thing that I am still trying to get better at, kind of coaching myself into having really balanced and healthy thoughts about. But that's kind of my advice, I guess, is seek therapy and read Brene Brown and do your best to ask yourself in moments of panic or worry or self-consciousness, what is the story that I'm making up in my head? And how does that compare to reality? And this is very much business related. It is crucial, especially when a freelancer or a consultant, to know what you can and can't control, what you are and aren't responsible for, what you can and can't fix. So I'm much better at doing this in business than I am in my own head in relationships, because when you start out a consulting job, you ask the client, what is your end goal? How can I help you get there? What specifically do you want me to do? In the contract that my clients and I signed together, we have a list of exactly what each of us is responsible for, what the rates are, and what kind of scenario would lead us to end the contract or to charge more. It's also really helpful to be very honest about what I can't do, what I don't understand, what I'm not an expert in. I was initially very worried to tell a client, I don't know how to do that, or I'm not an expert at that, or what I cannot help you with is whatever. But it's actually a bit of a power move. You know, it's helpful to be able to say to somebody, I know exactly what I can help you with, and it is limited in scope. I'm not gonna say I can do whatever you need me to do because that would be untrue and would set us up for failure. So I can help people market their podcasts, but I cannot guarantee them download numbers. I can help them learn to pitch themselves to advertisers, but I can't guarantee them ads. And being really clear about that upfront is a benefit to both of us. So that's the current state of like overcaring, vulnerability, emotion, and whatnot in business and in life. It was a good question. Thank you for asking it. And I will see you for the end of business week tomorrow.